So, hello everyone, welcome to Careers Talks Live with the Young Project, and we are with, do you want to introduce yourself, Michael?
My name's Michael Baxter. I work for Nottingham Building Society as a management accountant.
Lovely. So, your job title, what exactly is your job title? You say management accountant?
Yeah, it's recently changed, so you have to forgive me for remembering what it is now.
Okay.
But it's business partner, which is very similar to management accountant for cost and investment for the Building Society. So yeah, business partner is the new parlance, if you like, but it's essentially management accountancy.
Mm-hmm. And what does that actually kind of mean by business partner?
Okay, so business partnering is something you'll see in a lot of companies, and essentially it's helping. So in a company, I have lots of departments. You have a marketing department, an IT department, HR department, and they all need to understand budgets and finance. They need to understand how well the business is doing, how much their people cost them, how much their equipment costs them, and so on and things like that. And they're not all financially skilled. So what they need somebody to basically hold their hand and help them with the financial side, to help them plan, help them budget, help them work out what's happening, essentially keep them on track and make sure they don't spend too much money, or, you know, if they have some to spend, how to spend it best. And that's what a business partner does. So it essentially is the outward facing role in the finance team to help other departments kind of meet their goals. So it's different from, say, financial accountancy, which is more about rules, regulations, reporting, and that kind of thing.
Cool. And so how long have you been kind of in your current role?
So my current role, well, I'll be honest, I couldn't tell you. I've worked in Nottingham Building Society for 12 years now, and I started off as assistant management accountant. And because the business has changed over those years, my role's kind of evolved as it goes along. But I've been in my current job at least 4 or 5 years. So I used to report into the job that I do now. So I've always been in like this part of finance. But yeah, quite a long time at one place, which is unusual these days, but it's a good place to work.
That's it. I mean, that's the major thing, that you're happy where you are, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And if they keep offering you things, keep offering, new, ways of growing in your role, then you'll find a lot of people do stay with places a long time if it's right for them,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a development thing at the end of the day, isn't it? If you feel like you're kind of stuck somewhere, then you're unlikely to stick around.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So, how did you get to like where you are today into your current role? Like, what was your kind of route into what you're doing now?
Right from the start, or?
Yeah. Go on, tell us your life story.
Well, I did A levels and GCSEs. I didn't get amazing A levels and GCSEs. Didn't get any A's. So that's something not to worry about too much. Well, at least I didn't. And I went to university. I did a business studies degree at Aston University. And it was kind of a general business studies degree. So you did a bit of marketing, a bit of finance, bit of entrepreneurial management, lots of different bits. So it didn't kind of push you down one route or the other. And after university, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just started temping. So I was temping in offices, just doing administration-based jobs. And then I got tapped on the shoulder one day and someone said, do you want to go and work in the sales ledger team for 9 months because someone's going on maternity leave? And I actually remember what sales ledger meant. And literally I was right at the start of my understanding again. Even though I'd done some accounting at university, it was still like, I even forgot what that word was. And basically it was about sending out invoices to customers and making them pay them. It was in a business. So it was lots of other businesses you were kind of chasing. And I kind of enjoyed that. It kind of suited my personality. I like chasing people, saying, why haven't you paid the invoice? Threatening to send the boys in, that kind of thing. Setting up new systems around that. So it was quite interesting. It was something to get my teeth into. And I did a couple more of those jobs. So I moved around after that role. And then somebody said to me, why don't you train to be an accountant? And I couldn't have been any ruder, I don't think, at the time. I was like, oh, it's so boring. Like, come on, an accountant. I couldn't even believe the word, let alone telling my friends I was going to be an accountant. It would just be so embarrassing. I said, oh, I remember the guy very well. I said, Dean, but accountants are really sad. And he said, but I'm an accountant. I said, well, you're okay. You're fine. So he just said to me, you convinced me, which is awful. He said, convinced me to train to be an accountant. But he gave me a job that wasn't accountancy. And I fell for that. I said, okay, then go on. And then over the months, he kind of slipped jobs in that were basically accounting. So he encouraged me to apply for one of the accounting bodies, which was CIMA. So there's three main ones in this country. There's ACCA, there's CIMA, which is Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, and there's ICEAW, which is Chartered Accountancy. And if you want to work in a business, so you don't want to work in a practice, you can go work in an accountancy practice that does other people's accounts. That's generally the chartered route, the ICEAW. But if you want to work in a business, something like ACCA or CIMA is considered to have a few more business type skills in there. So I applied to do CIMA, and because I'd done a degree, they gave me some exemptions from some modules that helped me on my way. And then I did classes in the evening, no, did classes at weekends for a couple of years, and it wasn't every weekend, but there were times where you'd work like 5 days, go to a classroom for 2 days, then work another 5 days, maybe like 3 weeks in a row. But it was worth it, because in 2 or 3 years I qualified, and I finished and got my letters after my name and finished my qualification. And by that time I was working at Nottingham Building Society. I think I just joined just as I finished. But they supported me through that, and a lot of companies will support you to study. So whether it's giving you a day off a module, or the day of the exam off, or even longer off, like a week per module or something. So if I just rewind a second, I think CIMA is about, in total when I did it, it was about 36 modules, so kind of 3 lots of 12. And you generally do, I can't remember, you do a few modules a year though, so it might not be 36. I might be wrong on that, you'd have to look it up. But yeah, it took me about 2 to 3 years. And companies will support you, so they'll pay for that, because it can be quite expensive. Depending how you learn those modules, it can be, say, £500 for classroom teaching, or you can get the study books at home for like a couple of hundred. But it depends what kind of person you are. If you want to pick up the books and learn from home, that's a lot cheaper, obviously. But it's a lot harder. I found it easier to have someone face-to-face teaching me most of the stuff. So yeah, that's how I got here in my job at the moment, and I really enjoy it. But I would say it's probably not what most people consider to be accounting a lot of the time. It's more about a relationship business, I'd say, and helping people around the business understand what they're doing. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting, because like I didn't really know that your job existed until I kind of spoke to you. But like, I think people kind of think of finances, you just kind of look after the money, but it's a lot more than that. And you have the ability to kind of speak to people and kind of check on, how they're getting on. So because you said, I think you gave like a rough overview of what your job is, but like what sort of specific tasks do you kind of do during your job?
Okay, so sometimes I feel like I'm an agony aunt. So you might sit down with a head of a department. I won't name a department because someone from my company's on here. So let's say, you sit down with the head of HR, which never happens, Suzanne, and they say, and you might spend 20 minutes just talking about how their team are, what they're doing, what projects they've got on, learning about the business all the time. And then they'll say, right, let's talk about our budget for this, because I need some more money for this. I need to spend more on this, but where can I find it? How can I do this? So you're helping them, but also listening to them and understanding about the business and what their problems they've got. And sometimes, you're a bit of a shoulder to cry on sometimes as well. If they're having a bad time, you can support them in that. Mm-hmm. So partnering is all about supporting them as well. But I would say about the partnering job is, this is useful for anyone looking for a career. It exists in other teams too. So you'd have a HR partner, again, someone who's an expert in HR and all the law that goes around that and all the skills they've got. And they'll go out and they'll work with the finance team, the IT team. And we don't have any, but in other businesses, just depending how they're set up, you might have an IT partner, you might have a marketing partner. So those roles do exist. The bigger the company, the more of those roles you'll have. Smaller companies won't have them at all because there's no need. But certainly in a company of 300 or 400 people, you'd probably almost have a business partner or a similar role. Might not be called a business partner, but a very similar role. But for those other specialties, you'll definitely have that also. So HR, we have a HR business partner. We have, I think, 3 of them are in work. So if that's the kind of thing you are, if you're a people person, but you want to have some background knowledge of things, like you want to be a HR expert in law and those kind of skills, but you want to get help other teams manage their HR, and that's the kind of role for you.
And I will just briefly explain what HR is, because like, I think definitely when I was younger, I'd not even heard of it, HR, and I didn't know that it existed. So apologies to anyone kind of watching if you do already know what HR is, but I just thought it's worth explaining just in case you don't. HR stands for human resources, and it basically involves anything to do with people in a workplace. I mean, almost every business will need an HR department, no matter how big or small. But like if you're in like a small business of maybe 2 or 3 employees, you're not going to have a whole department around it, but there will be one person who's kind of responsible for the HR stuff. So that essentially means like the hiring of people. It means if anyone needs training, if you need new contracts, if people need to be made redundant, all of those things, or like if there's any kind of performance issues, human resources will deal with all of those issues. And maybe if anyone wants someone from HR to come and do a careers talk, then be more than happy to facilitate that. So just let us know in the chat. And again, if you have any questions throughout the course of this, then please feel free to leave them in the chat and we'll answer them. But as for you, Michael, so you mentioned the SEMA and the other routes in, and you had like GCSEs, A levels, and a degree. Is there anything else, any other like qualifications that you have that have kind of helped you to get to where you are?
No, and I think for SEMA to start off, you only actually need GCSEs. I don't think you need A levels. You by all means check, but I think yeah. And I think if you have like A level maths, it might give you an exam from like the foundation maths module, which might be like a bit of statistics and things like that. Because I'll assume you know all those things. So yeah, there's some foundational things. And the reason the foundation exists is people without those skills at A level or so on. It's to basically give them a very short A level overview in a few months kind of thing to get them up to a certain standard.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that do you have any like advice or any particular tips on anyone that might want to get in a similar kind of career to you? Because obviously you've kind of fallen into it, but I guess the whole point of doing these is so that people have more of an idea of what the jobs are that existed. Because like obviously you've said that yours is like a common one, but it's not one that's popularized enough for people to kind of know about it. So is there any kind of tips for anyone who you think has decided that this is a direction they might want to kind of pursue?
I'd look at what entry-level jobs there are, because some will offer study support. Even if you haven't started studying, you can still look for ones with study support. And they might tie you in for a year or two, but that's only because if they're going to spend £3,000 or £4,000 a year on education, essentially using your modules, they don't want to lose you when you finish and you go off somewhere else for a better offer. They might tie you in for a couple of years, but there's always roles that offer study support. That's definitely where I'd start. I mean, that's what I did. Essentially, I was at a company who decided to pay for it. And that's you know, it's expensive if you do it yourself. And some places will be realistic and won't tie you in for a couple of years afterwards. They might say, okay, we'll just pay for it because we want to invest in you and we think we'll keep you because we're a good place to work, rather than, you know, we'll give you some boring jobs and you finish and you want to leave, but you won't be able to. There's some of the big accountancy. There's 4 big accountancy firms who have a graduate trainee scheme every year, and they are extremely competitive and hard to get onto. And they take down the chartered route. That's like Deloitte and KPMG, and they'll work you really, really hard for a couple of years. And if you fail an exam there, they'll get rid of you basically. So there are the top end. They pick the very best graduates, very best kind of A-level students. But they do work them hard, and it's very tough, but it's very rewarding. If you do your training at one of those big 4, you put that on your CV, you'll pretty much get any job you go for, because they train to such good standard. But they do have everyone working like 70-hour weeks. It's very tough.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a route into employment. Yeah. So much you value private for family life and friendships, then yeah, that's certainly one route into it.
And I was going to say, what would you say is like the differences between what you do and like what a management accountant does? So when people kind of think of accountancy, what are the differences between what you do and what like a quote unquote normal accountant does?
Well, we'll call them a financial accountant, because that's how this is split. So financial accountants, that's all about the annual report that goes out to everyone to see. It's about dealing with HMRC and making sure the tax is paid. Make sure your account because accounting, you have standards. So all your profit and loss, your balance sheet, they've all got a certain standard. Everyone's can compare with other industries. So everyone's got to have this cost in a certain place, and tax for different lines of expenses, different some years, and you have to keep on top of all those kind of regulations and so on. But my audience isn't external, so I'm not saying we can make it up. We can have different views of numbers internally, as long as you understand how they match to what everyone else sees outside. So yeah, financial accounting is a lot more focused on the rules and regulations, whereas management accounting, I suppose, is a bit more creative, because you're going to be able to understand things, and sometimes showing them a profit and loss on the balance sheet, it's going to go over their head. So just talk about it in their numbers, in their language. So that's financial accounts, but they run in really important areas of the finance team, like a sales ledger. So not in our business, we don't issue invoices for mortgage payments, but normally you'd have your company would generate a product or a service, and you'd issue an invoice to a customer, and then you'd get to pay it straight away, which is quite common these days, or you give them credit terms, and then you chase them up after 15 days and say, you're going to pay this, and then you'd send the bailiffs in touch a solicitor, that kind of thing. So that's sales ledger. And that's where a lot of people start in finance. People don't go to university and don't want to do A-levels. Sometimes a route in is to start in one of these ledger roles. That's sales ledger. You've got purchase ledger, which is the opposite. So it's buying things. It's everything the company buys. It's receiving invoices from other companies, making sure you pay them on time, dealing with cash flow. So the boss of the company might say, you can only spend £50,000 a week, and your invoice is total 60,000, or you got to manage those relationships with your suppliers, that kind of thing. And it depends on the size of the company, but some companies will have one person doing both those jobs. So that would be also a good place to start in those ledger roles, because you understand the basics of finance. And there's also roles around managing the cash books, so managing the bank accounts every day, making sure money coming in goes to the right place, money going out goes to the right place, that kind of thing. And because we're a building site, we're a financial institution, so we have mortgages and savings products. We have 4 people in our cash books team, so we have bank accounts with thousands of transactions a day in. But again, in a smaller business, you might have somebody who does all of that. Or you might have a team that does, or one person does that, and 4 people in purchase ledger, or 6 people in sales ledger. It all varies on the needs of the business. So if you're a good example, I suppose, like a car parts manufacturer, well, you might, so incoming, when you make your widgets for Ford, you might have 30 suppliers coming into you, and you put them together and make something, but you've only got one customer. So your sales ledger is going to be no point. There's only one customer who pays you every month, so then you wouldn't have that role.
And then you have like all of the different people, so you have to. Well, I get you're based within a department, aren't you? So you just have that similarly, you just have that one department, but then you obviously speak to the people within that to kind of make sure that everything balances out.
That's right. So they're essentially they're giving me the numbers. They're telling me how much I spent in a month, and it's for me to kind of talk to the budget holder and say, oh, well, you said you spent this, you really spent this, and manage that side of things. They care about getting the numbers right. I care about what they mean. That's the difference, I suppose.
And what would you say was like the biggest factor that like helped you in your journey to get to where you are?
It's very difficult. Very difficult. I wouldn't say there's one thing. There's not a magic bullet which will get you into a job. I think luck. I think finding somebody in a business. Certainly for me, it was finding this guy Dean, who said, "Why don't you try to be an accountant?" Because he saw me, believed in me, and thought I didn't go on to do a good job at this. So I suppose that was the luck part. But in terms of what put me in that position, it was everything. It was, I wouldn't necessarily say it was university education, but that helped when it came to getting SEMA. So it's difficult to say what one thing. So no, I wouldn't say there's one thing. I'd say it's lots of little things, lots of little things.
And what's like been the biggest obstacle in your career pathways? Like, was there anything which kind of stuck out and was a bit of a barrier, and like how did you kind of overcome that? How did you get over that to onto like a better outcome?
That's really difficult. I can't think of anything specifically that I view like that. Sorry, no.
No, that's fine.
I can't think of anything which not that anything ever held me back. I think, again, I think it's luck. It's if I want to progress and do something in the company, things at that time have aligned to let me do that. You know, I haven't moved because when I wanted more responsibility or when I want to stop doing something, there was someone to give that bit to and then take on another bit from someone else, or somebody left, so I started doing something different. So I've been quite lucky in that. But I'd say people expect to move probably every 4 or 5 years because they get fed up with what they're doing and they want something a bit different. But if the company kind of values you, I'm not saying this is me, but if they value, they'll give you that other thing, they'll move you around, they'll change those things around you. So it's luck of finding that good fit with the company, I think. Relationships are part of that.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Because, like, I think when you get your first job, or like if you're looking to get to your first job, maybe one of the most important things that people might look at is like how you progress or how you know whether you can progress. And like, do you have any kind of like tips on that, on like how you would go about those conversations, or like how you find the right sort of company where you're going to have that ability to progress onto that next step?
I'd say a good tip, I think, is go for lots of interviews. So even jobs you don't want to take that may be too far away, if you get off an interview, just go for it and have some practice. And because that's the best way of finding out. And you might be surprised if you get an interview somewhere thinking, oh, I don't want to work there, but I'm just going to go along and I'll learn something about how I come across or about what kind of thing they might ask. So I said that was a good thing. But sometimes you can tell people come for a job interview and they don't really want the job, they're there for a bit of practice. So you can get seen through. I've been asked an interview before, was I there for practice? And did I really want the job? Yeah. And I had to lie because I was there for practice. I didn't want the job. It was too far, the commute. But it was a second interview. So I thought, well, it's really good practice. so yeah.
Yeah.
I think but interviews have changed. Like they've changed. The last time I did interview was 12 years ago. I'm sure they've changed a lot now. There's a lot more selection centres and things like that. So really the best person to ask this question to is somebody in HR. Somebody who works in recruitment, and I can recommend someone. I'm sure won't mind coming to talk to people.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad that we have got someone coming on from a recruitment agency in a couple of weeks. So like,
they'll be really honest. You will get so much information from them. I've learned a lot from recruitment consultants over the years.
Because recruitment is a bit like sales. Like you kind of have to find the right people for jobs, but like it's also because people are paid on commission for how many people they manage to find jobs. Like it is a bit of a dog eat dog industry. So I mean, if anyone here is kind of like interested in recruitment or anything like that, then in a few weeks, keep an eye out, because we've got someone coming on here who works as a director at a recruitment agency. So that'll be an interesting one. But bringing it back to you, if you had to do anything else again, what would you change, if anything?
I probably wouldn't have gone to university, not for the experience that I had and the friends I met, that was brilliant. But in terms of, it's difficult because I didn't pay full fees when I went. I paid some fees, but not full, not like they have now. And I think looking at now, because it's my job, I'm too focused on the cost of it. I think I've met people who work for Deloitte and EY and big 4 companies, haven't gone to university, and they've had these opportunities because they're incredibly bright, but they've gone straight into jobs. And as long as I've got, good A-levels or good GCSEs, just don't be afraid to take that route. Nobody asks you what your degree was. Nobody asks you. I think the job I applied for here, I don't think I had to have a degree. I think I had to have a degree equivalent or studying SEMA. But I think it's something that will certainly soften. I don't know. The recruitment person's the best person to ask about that. But I probably wouldn't have gone given what I thought it gave me afterwards. So, yeah. And these days with the fees, it's really hard to justify that level of expense. Unless, and don't get me wrong, unless you're going to be an engineer, a doctor, an optician, anything like that, you've got to go to university, and those jobs are, they're really prized.
Yeah.
But if you're not sure and you think you'll just go to university because it's something to do almost, or you might get a job at the end of it, I would question that a lot, I think. But yeah, there are some degrees where, you're going to walk out straight into a job. So
yeah, definitely.
Really clear on that. I think it's really sad because I come from a family of academics, but the days of things like sociology and philosophy and things that I probably wanted to do at university, but I chose not to do because I didn't think I'd get a job. I think those days probably not outnumbered, but I think it's a sad day. But I think, unfortunately, given the cost, it's a big risk to do a degree like that. Unless you don't expect to get a job, that's fine. If you just want to get a job doing anything kind of thing, then go ahead and do that. But it's hard to choose a career out of that.
Yeah. But again, like, so that you could just fall into a job like you have, like, because you didn't necessarily go to university and say, like, I know exactly what I'm going to do on the other side, so I'm doing it for this purpose. You kind of did your degree, and then, like, at the end, you're like, okay, well, what now? Ended up in something, and then you eventually found kind of what you wanted to do by asking the right questions, getting to know the right people, and working hard, like, ultimately. So I think it's okay to like not necessarily have a clear path, but I think the sooner you can get a clear path, then the better. And that's why things like this are valuable, and that's why things like the mock interviews that schools now do a lot more. They're really valuable as well, because you get that kind of experience, so you don't need to go to those interviews and practice as you said, and get and have to do that. So I've got 2 more questions, and then if anyone else has got any questions, then by all means put them in the chat.
Okay.
So what's been like the most important lesson that you've learned so far?
I'd say don't settle for an easy job, because it kind of sends that message out to other people that that's the level you're at. And if you want to progress in the longer run, maybe don't jump in straight away, but take on little bit. So you might not be ready to take a step you've been offered, but don't just reject it outright, because then you will be pigeonholed into, well, they don't want to progress, they just want to do this. But then if you don't want to progress, don't beat yourself about it. Like we need people, we call them plodders, but certain jobs in finance where you need a plodder. You need someone who's going to come in for 30 years, come in at 9 o'clock, do that job, and leave at 4:30, leave at 5 o'clock, because they're so valuable. And the way you can't get them, because they never leave their jobs. So you find one, you keep them. So if you turn out to be a plodder, don't worry about it. But if you want to progress, make sure people know it, and just ask. If you want to do something different, if you're bored of your job, and you're valued, they'll find something else for you to do. If you're bored of your job and you're not valued and you ask, then they'll probably give you the answer, which is, you need to find somewhere else. But just don't be afraid of asking. If you want to do something different, if you're unhappy, just tell somebody.
I think that's a great point, to be fair. That's a great point. And then
people don't ask. People, I work in a very close team to mine, and I'm amazed everyone's at the position they're in, because they're all very insular. They don't ask. They don't seem to want to progress. It takes someone to tap on the shoulder going, do you want to do this other job? And I know it's different personality types, but I think if you want to progress, you have to make that known. That's really, really key.
Definitely, I think that's a great point. And then my last question is like this might be a bit of a difficult question, but like what does the future hold for you? Where do you kind of want to go? Where do you see yourself?
Hopefully still at Nottingham. I don't know. I'm still really enjoying my job. It's changing. It changes all the time, even though it's the same underlying thing. So I think as long as there's a new challenge, a new business case to work on, or a new plan for the business, and I can see which way it's going, it's a good place to work. So I can't see myself leaving at the moment. But I would say that because somebody from work is watching this. But I think if it was up to me, I'd maybe have a few more people in the team to help me out on some menial jobs I've been doing for a while, and maybe progress that way. But I know that given the management of the Nottingham, that kind of thing would be warmly received, and we'd find a way of doing that in the long run. So I think, again, if you're happy where you are and people will support you to progress, then I can see myself staying a lot longer.
Awesome. Love that. Cool. So I think that's all of the questions that I had written down. Does anyone here have any questions that they want to ask? Anything else that you want to find out about Michael and his career, and kind of like how he ended up where he was? Like, I've tried to cover most bases, but I mean, has anyone kind of, do you think that you're more interested in that as a career now, or has anyone got any other questions? just write them in the chat, and then we'll go from there. If anyone's got anything. No one said anything. Okay. No, nothing so far.
Just such great questions, Max. That's what it is. They were such great questions. You covered all the bases.
Well, I tried to be fair, but I mean, I don't want to miss out on people's opportunities, because I think you've given some really great insights there into your job and into like a career pathway that not as many people kind of know about. So really do appreciate it. I do have a Survey Monkey, which I can't currently access, but I will send it to everyone who's been here. Andy.
Hey, so there was something at the bottom of, I did a profile for somebody for our website, I think, and the last thing was, I think it was like one, it was something else I'd kind of share with people, and that's, people love to, well, I like talking about myself, most people like talking about themselves. Just ask people who've got a job that you want or you might want. Say, what do you do? Like, what do you do every day? Everything. People generally like talking to people about things. And, you know, ring companies that you want to work for. So I want to work for you. These are what I'm good at. You know, I'm good at language, or I'm good at maths, or whatever it might be. What are the routes into your company? How can I join? They might have an apprentice scheme. There's lots of things like that. Just ring people and ask them. Like I say, if you find someone and they want to talk about their job, most people really like talking about it. So
yeah, no, that's great. To be fair, like
I think we've got like 5 people from the Nottingham coming on to do these, because everyone wants to tell you about their job, be it financial crime or marketing, or there's loads of people coming on. So
that's it, and I think it'll be really. I'm really excited to kind of speak to other people as well and find out about their job, because I find it interesting talking to other people about what they do, because again, you don't necessarily know until you talk to people, do you? That's it. Like that's the whole.
I mean, financial crime is fascinating. I know nothing about it, but the lady that's coming on to talk about it, she's brilliant. So you'll learn a lot about that, and that's quite a unique job to a financial institution, but it'd be fascinating.
Definitely. So yeah, if no one's got any other questions, then this kind of is the end.